If I'd known as an adult how much I received from them, I would wish one thing, and that would be to go back there and ask them again and again to explain more.
Welcome, everyone. You're listening to the Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio, episode 662, with today's guest, Renshi Nikki Wolf. I'm Jeremy Lesniak. I'm your host for the show. I founded Whistlekick, well, because I love martial arts, and that's why we do all the things that we do. You want to see all the things that we do? Well, go to whistlekick.com. Check out what we have over there. You're going to find links and highlights of our products, our projects, our services. And one of the things over there, we sell stuff, a store. Use the code podcast15, get yourself 15% off anything we have over there. And I don't think I've mentioned it lately, but all of our apparel ships free internationally. So if you're one of our listeners in another country, well, just keep in mind, you can grab a shirt and not pay any shipping. It's all built in. That's why we do some of the things the way we do them, because it makes it easier to do stuff like that. Other stuff that we do, well, this show, which you already knew about because you're listening to it. Go to whistlekickmartialartsradio.com and you can check out every single episode we have ever done. They are all available for free. Audio links, video links, photos, videos, transcripts, social media. There's a ton of stuff over there. So go check it out and get yourself some more context for the interviews or the topic episodes that we do twice a week. The goal of the show, and really of Whistlekick overall, is to connect and educate and entertain traditional martial artists the world over. If that work that we're doing means something to you and you want to support it, consider doing any one of many, many things, like leaving a review or buying something, or, I don't know, supporting the Patreon. Patreon.com/whistlekick. You can do as little as $2 a month, $2 a month. We bring you 8 episodes a month, so that's a pretty good deal, isn't it? And then guess what? We're going to give you even more information. You want to know who's coming up on the show? The only way to find out is to join the Patreon. How about some bonus podcast material? How about extra videos? How about drafts of books and programs? Heck, even final drafts. Yep, you can get those too on Patreon, depending on the tier that you join. Oh, and you also get free swag. So tons of value there. Check it out, patreon.com/whistlekick. Here we are more than 6 years into this show, and we still find opportunities to bring people on who train martial arts in a different way. And in this case, they train different martial arts. Renshi Wolf, well, I'm not even going to explain it because I'm going to mess it up. But it is fair to say we have not yet had someone on the show doing what she is doing. And suffice it to say, there are very few people doing what she is doing. It's an amazing conversation. And let's be honest, not a lot of conversation, because I was just transfixed at what she was saying. The stories that she's telling, the way that she took her martial arts out into the world blows my mind. Exciting stuff. And I'm excited for you to hear it. So here we go. Hey, Sensei, welcome to Whistlekick Martial Arts Radio.
Hey, good to be here.
It's great to have you. You're on the show representing some things, some practices, even I think, if I'm remembering correctly, some locations maybe that we haven't had on the show before. So I'm going to let you wear those mantles however strongly you want, but I know we're going to get into some cool stuff, and I've been pumped for this one. Here, what are we, 6 years in? It's not often we get firsts anymore.
Yes. So I'm actually in my proper title as a Kunrei on the Japanese Council for Musashi Clan Order of Shinobi Samurai. That is like real Japan stuff right there. That's
so cool.
Very cool.
It's a long title.
Yeah. So when people say to me, "Are you a real ninja?" I'm like, "Yeah." And I do. I get that. It's like, "Are you a real ninja?" Absolutely, I am.
Now, of course, when anybody says Musashi, most of us are going to go to Miyamoto. Same lineage?
No, but that's like saying, Mr. Johnson, are you the same as Mr. Johnson?
Oh, all right. It's a common family name.
It's a name, yeah. It's a
Okay.
name. But Musashi clan was a very big group of people. So they have lineage that goes all the way back. My master is Kiyomi Vanessa Shibata, and she is the current head of the Order of Shinobi Samurai Musashi clan, and quite a fantastic lady to talk to too. And I answer to her, and she likes to say ninjas are not what the movies make them, and we know this. A lot of us know this. The movies did great for Hollywood stuff, but it's not really what ninjutsu is. Ninjutsu is very spiritual, and it involves the collecting of information and spy stuff and tracking and that sort of thing, and all the disguise that goes with that. So that's real ninjutsu. And ninjutsu for martial arts, talking about ninjutsu in martial arts, a lot of people get mixed up and think that ninjutsu is martial arts. It actually isn't. Taijutsu, which is the collection of martial arts that belong to ninja or shinobi, is more correct way to say it.
Oh, okay. We're getting history lessons. We're getting etymology lessons. I appreciate it.
So, okay. Yeah. So under this banner of collective things that ninja or shinobi is the proper word do, is the 18, you talk about or hear or read about the 18 skills of the ninja. And one of them is the equestrian arts, or what is known as Bujutsu. It's one of the 18 skills. So most people know about that. And I specialize in the equestrian arts, which is Bujutsu, or actually horse martial arts, which is Bajo Buge. And that is something that is seen and very little is known about it. And because horses become pretty much a non-thing in Japan, it kind of went away. So.
Okay. So you said Bujutsu, not obviously not Bojutsu, Bujutsu.
Yeah, as in horse.
The simplicity that my mind is trying to make of that wants to interpret it as kicking butt while on a horse. Is that accurate?
Absolutely accurate. Absolutely
really
accurate.
Okay.
and as we go forward, you're going to see exactly. I'm going to show you the modern application of an ancient martial art. So we need to start somewhere at the beginning. So we're going to start with the origin of me, and how did I come by this amazing stuff?
That was going to be my question. So thank you.
It's like a big round circle. So this started for me before I actually ended up where I should have been. So my father lived in Japan for some time, and he trained with Sensei Shigeru Kumaru. And Sensei Shigeru Kumaru was Shukakai karate. And Shukakai arrived in South Africa, and my father and another partner, and they kind of set it up. And so I grew up in the dojo life. So they opened a dojo in South Africa under the Shukakai banner. And I grew up in this system. But I was quite a wild child. And I spent, when I wasn't in school or in my father's dojo, probably sweeping more than anything else, I was introduced by my Japanese uncle to a small group of Shinto monks who happened to be living in South Africa. And nobody knows a lot about them or how they came to be here, just that they were. And I spent most of my afternoons and I passed a lot of time with them. And they trained me in a number of things. And that is something that not many people can claim or get to do. And if I'd known as an adult how much I received from them, I would wish one thing, and that would be to go back there and ask them again and again to explain more. And it's like when you're a child and you don't realize what a wonderful situation you're in. And then you become an adult and you go, damn, I should have really paid more attention. And so they trained me in everything from acupuncture and acupressure, which is Kenbiki Seika Jutsu. Seiyaku Jutsu is the martial arts acupuncture. I think Kyushu is a modern fanciful word in the last couple of 10 years, which is hitting and striking pressure points. So I've learned martial acupuncture, Ninpo martial acupuncture, which is battlefield acupressure and acupuncture. So you go, okay, well, what the hell is that? Well, on a samurai battlefield, there would often have been horses with terrible injuries, men without arms, legs, and these, let's call them battle medics, would have been on that battlefield checking who would need what. And sometimes the what was a vein press to stop the heart or stop the heart beating. I mean, a horse with no legs is not going to be helped, that sort of thing. And no one thinks about that side of acupressure and acupuncture, or where it may have come from so long ago. So martial acupuncture is very different to the acupuncture you go and study at varsity, because it's sort of here and now. You have a headache, I'll take it away now. You just got thumped in the eye, you're bruising up, I'm going to apply acupuncture or acupressure, and tomorrow you'll be barely bruised. Very fast healing, that sort of thing. So that art from the monks was something that I've used over and over and over and over again, and actually went on to study acupuncture more seriously, and found that I was practicing something that hadn't been seen in 100 years, according to Dr. Lee, who is the Cape Town acupuncture lady doctor from China, who does all the examinations. So that was interesting to hear that from her, that the monks had trained me to do something that has not been seen in the acupuncture world in 100 years. So I knew there was something different and strange going on. And then I learned a lot of empty hand, a lot of different weapons, and this thing called Bajra Bugay, which is martial arts on horseback. So I had horses. I grew up with horses. My father kept horses, and this was a natural transition for them to teach me these things. So I found out much later, when I started digging and scratching, that these monks had come from a shrine on the edge of Fukushima. And it wasn't difficult to find, actually, because there are only 2 shrines in the whole of Japan that have wolf statues. The one is, now you're going to love this, the one is the Musashi Shrine, the main Musashi Shrine in Kyoto. And the other shrine with the wolf statues is on the edge of Fukushima in the village of, just outside the village of Leyte in Fukushima province. So this shrine had the wolf statuettes that they had described, and so they came from there for sure. And that was very interesting. It was another one of those synchronicities. So it's like Musashi clan, Kiyomi was talking to me. We did some research. We sent researchers to sort of find out, and we came back with this, and it was like Musashi clan wolf. Yeah, okay. And we are given names in Musashi clan, which are very important, used to be very important now to the Japanese. And this was my name, so as chosen by them. So it was all synchronicity, just incredible amounts of synchronicity, all telling me that this was the right path. So, okay. So let me not digress. So we have the monks and where they come from and what I was trained for, which is just incredible. Questions?
No, just keep going. I'm taking it all in. There's a flow. I don't want to break it.
Okay. So horseback martial arts. So a lot of what I was doing as a teenager and a child was from a perspective of someone who is training and listening to people who don't speak English very well, but have to explain everything and, getting it right. And so instead of working with a nagamaki, I'm working with a sort of a long stick. Instead of working with a yari, I'm working also with a long stick. Instead of working with a katana, I'm working with a bokken. And, I was being taught all of this stuff all the time without actually realizing that I was being trained for an art that's pretty much gone. So I carried on with the monks for quite a while. When I was about 17, 18, I went to work for a local Tong family there's a lot of Chinese Tong in Cape Town, where I grew up. There's actually a very, very large Chinese contingent, even more so now that we're a full-on communist country. And they're very comfortable here, and they have a lot of community here. And so I trained with them as a bodyguard, which was very interesting work. And I got to do a lot of very heavy Sandow and Sanshao, but mostly Sandow, because Chinese bodyguards train in Chinese kickboxing and variations of that, depending on who's training you. And so I got a first-hand version of real Chinese martial arts to go with my already Japanese martial arts. And that was kind of interesting. And from there, I was just a regular bodyguard, if you get such a thing. I was just a regular bodyguard for a while. The Chinese like to use half Japanese, they like half breeds, so I fitted right in. And then as I got sort of a little bit further along or matured a bit more, I started to realize that I needed to get back to doing things with the horses. And so for a while, I joined the South African military, specifically the equestrian training side. And that for a while was fulfilling, because I was back with the horses. I couldn't do what I wanted to do, but I was definitely in a military setting. The discipline was there, and I was teaching and training horses for the military. South Africa at that time had a massive, very strong mounted units who patrolled the borders really well. And so I was sort of very, very versed in and stuck in that, training horses for border duty and so on. And I was asked really nicely to come back and do a little more bodyguarding. And so I did. And I returned to my previous employer and ended up in Botswana, actually. A country, I don't know if you know where that is, but it's a country well above South Africa. And at the time, my employer had meetings and things to do with the Botswana government. And I ended up in long conversations with Lady Khama, who was the wife of, or the mother of Lieutenant General Khama at the time, and Seretse Khama, who was their president. And I got into long discussions with Lieutenant General Ian Khama, who was at the time the young general of the army. And he had been raised in the UK, but he was, very much back in his country, loved horses. His mother loved horses. Lady Khama, it was British. She loved horses. And the discussion came around that I had this martial arts horse background, and everyone was very excited. And I was asked if I would assist in training some officers' courses. And my employer sort of did he's a lovely Chinese man. And he said, of course, with his blessing, not a problem. And he kind of, I obviously came back and did my paperwork and everything. And then I ended up there for quite a long time. And within a year, I was in uniform. And I did do a lot of training back in the army, very happy about the discipline again. And this time, a little bit more free, because I got to do my thing. And we were training, rhino wars, rhino poaching, elephant poaching in Botswana and Africa in general. It was quite a big, hectic problem. And Lieutenant General Ian Khama is an absolute icon in the anti-poaching world. And he turned Botswana around really hectically about anti-poaching. And I answered to him, and I helped him train a very large mounted anti-poaching unit. And within a year, I was no longer a consultant, but I ended up in uniform. I still don't know how that happened. It was very fast. And I ended up in uniform. And I completed ranger training. I was awarded captaincy, much to the absolute horror of the of the men in the military around me, because Botswana at that time did not take in women at all, and definitely had no pale skins in the army. It just wasn't there. So I was like a pariah, female and pale. It was just wrong, all wrong. And I was doing something very masculine, which was, horses. Motswanas, they don't ride. They don't get on horses. They don't, it's just not done. They do woman things. So I was the most unwoman woman in the army. And I was in uniform. I was in charge of a very large contingent of men. I had about 600 horses to train and command. And we did a really good job. And I found that a lot of their poaching problems were actually not the poachers, but their lack of training. So they had little to no actual training. They were soldiers that could get on horses. And so we set about working with proper weaponry. And Botswana is very, very lucky. They train with the best of the best in the world. So we have instructors from the British and the US Marines come and still do, and Israel. So Israel, US, and they all train the Botswana Defense Force units in different things. And so this was a fantastic opportunity for me, because I got to train with these wonderful people, from these soldiers from all over the world, these ranking trainers from all over the world. And it was a wonderful time in my life. I was just, I was training and military at the same time. So, and getting all this knowledge whilst unfolding. And what I was unfolding was all my Bajabugai and Bajutsu with the horses. I was getting to test it on real people and real horses. It wasn't just me testing things. I was testing it on units that I was training. And I found what worked and what really didn't work. And things that I thought worked didn't work. And things that I really didn't think worked sometimes really worked well. And that was eye-opening. And then, you take full responsibility when you train men to do a certain thing and then it doesn't work, or you train men to do a thing and it works well. So that was a fantastic opportunity. We were so very successful that I was, I was given a specific, which was to train men in bladed combat from horseback, in horseback combatives, to be a ranger unit. So we trained 40 men to do specifically. And you could call them ninja if you actually looked at them properly. But they were obviously in uniform. But the directive was to make everything look like infighting. And so they had proper galils and proper training from the Israelis and the British in their firearms and that they carried, but their main mode of combat was bladed combat or horseback. And they carried Banshee dowel. So it's a much hardier sort of, it's like a machete, actually. I don't know if you're familiar with it, but it's like a sort of a machete. It's got a slightly longer handle. Look it up sometime. It's really a nice weapon. It's a super weapon, actually. And so I trained them with Banshees from horseback. And so the objective was, don't wait for the poachers to come kill stuff. Hunt them, track them, find them, eliminate them. That was the plan. And it worked. It worked really, really well. So poaching went from 80% down to 2% with this unit backed up by, obviously, military air support. But a lot of the places the poachers were poaching rhino and elephant, you couldn't get to with a vehicle. And if you could, the poachers would hear the vehicles coming. So the horses were like a silent death. They really were. They would track, and we would track and find them and sort them out so that they didn't come back. Because what happens in the poaching world in Africa is that you have these very experienced poachers who are really good at their jobs, deadly actually. And if you take them out, then the guys underneath them are normally their sons and cousins and brothers who are training to be poachers. And if you take that lot out, then the dum-dums are left. And the dum-dums make a lot of mistakes and they're scared. So they get dead even quicker. And slowly but surely, you wipe out a whole 2-3 generations of poachers and you suddenly start to have peace. Because if you make the reward of poaching not just about rhino horn, but about your life, if it's too risky to die doing it, then people get scared and they stop doing it. And then people rat people out. And the stronger we got, the more people ratted out people and the more poachers just couldn't exist in that environment. And we really did do a good job. And hunting and tracking the poaching problem was the way to go. So that was a very long and busy career.
Yeah, this is powerful stuff. Now, I kind of want to go back a little bit because there's a piece that I'm unclear of that doesn't, but maybe did thread that I didn't hear thread through any of this, and that is whether or not you enjoyed it.
Oh, absolutely. I loved my job. I really did love my job. In that environment, I had the opportunity to take all the Kuden and the secret knowledge that I'd been trained for with the monks, and not only practice it, but train it and use it to actually see what works and doesn't work in a real world environment. So it was hugely successful. And for me, successful, when I say successful, I'm not even talking about what the units did. I'm talking about for me as a martial artist to see this ancient Bajra become this modernized thing that worked. It was just incredible experience for me too. It was a unique experience for me. And I really did enjoy it. I loved what I did. I really did.
I think quite often when we talk about traditional martial arts, people are very quick to dismiss the practice of certain things, of certain weapons, of certain training styles, because, that doesn't apply today. That's irrelevant. Here's a great example of something that is so long past as to not be practiced, still relevant in a certain context in modern day.
Absolutely.
And not only relevant, but more effective. That's what I'm hearing.
Definitely was.
Pretty much anything else you could do.
Yes. Well, they're still going. I left quite a long time ago after several hits on my life, which was very unpleasant. 3 really bad ones to be exact. I just, I stuck out like a sore thumb. Poachers, strangely enough, huge cartels. They are cartels. They do drugs and they do rhino horn and they do everything. But they would kind of drop in on helicopters and give directives of like how much they wanted of what. And then the guys on the ground would sort of collect it and kill and slaughter. And then, so it was a thing that was, it was terrible because the outside influence, Korean and American influence on the poaching was mind-blowing. And that without army intervention, because when I arrived in Botswana, what was happening was their wildlife department was corrupt, rotten to the core. And this was the problem. So what Ian Khama did was he said, I'm going to make my own units. And he did. He took a piece of his military and he said, you are now dedicated to oversee wildlife. So they didn't answer to wildlife department. They just did their own thing. And if wildlife department was caught with their hand in the cookie jar, it was easier to dismiss them and fire them that way. And that's how he just went in like a rhino himself, Lieutenant General Ian Khama. He went on to be President Khama quite a while after I left. But I went home. He just said to me, I don't want to be at your funeral. Go home. And I very sadly did. It was very sad. Major General Fisher at the time, who is actually now Lieutenant General Fisher, he gave me the biggest compliment I think that an African army general could give a strange white woman from South Africa. And he said to me, It's actually famous at a one of their war councils in Gaborone, which is their capital. He said, Nikki, I do believe you are becoming like a man. And my retort was, I do believe, Major General Fisher, that you're starting to think like a woman. And the whole room erupted in laughter. And it's actually, it's still famous that I had the cheek to speak to a major general in that manner, and that he fired back in good nature, because he was well known for being a bad-tempered sod. And so that was a huge compliment, that I'm becoming like a man, because for men in the African army of Botswana, women did not have any place in the army, that's for sure. Not even secretaries. They just didn't have any women, as I said. So, yeah.
Wow. So that was a lot. That was a pretty big opening salvo from you. And we could probably go back in detail and pull, I don't know, 5-6 hours out of unpacking all those various things.
You get me going, and you'll have stories, and I have got stuff that happened to me, and things with wild animals, and we could go all day. But
I'm sure we could. I'm absolutely positive we could. This is the best part of my job, is if I do my job right, I don't have to do very much, and the guest does all the work. I love it.
I mean, I'm not going to, obviously, but I could. I mean, there are things like strange antidotes, and I'll give you just a small one. Like, I'm camped out in the Caprivi. I had, as female, so I had a corporal assigned to set up my tent and sort me out. All captains did. And we had this problem with some jackal who kept on raiding stuff in the tent. And I thought that I had gotten it, and I was going to chase it away from my stuff because it was in my tent. And I jumped up. I was in army fatigues. I jumped up and I ran at it yelling, and tripped over a log, which wasn't far from my tent, and it was out of the light of the campfires, and swore and kicked at the log, and went back to my tent thinking that I had been outsmarted by a jackal. And the next morning, very, very early, one of we had Bushman trackers in the army. They're very, very good. They can track over rocks. They're incredible. And he said to me in his funny little way, because they don't talk Setswana and they don't speak the African languages, they don't speak English. They use like sign language if you can't speak Bushman, which is a bunch of clicks and clocks, and you don't understand what they say. And he called me over and he pointed to the ground where I tripped over the log. There was no log, and he pointed out these massive lion paws. And what had happened was I'd run out of the tent, out of the light, and I'd literally fallen over a lioness. And there were 3 of them, and I'd kicked her, and then I'd walked back in temper to my tent. So I have lots and lots of anecdotal stories like that of things that happened to me. It really probably should be written down at some point. But yeah, you're talking stories. I have tons and tons and tons of stories.
How many people can say that they've kicked a lion and lived? I suspect
I think she was horrified.
Small group.
I think the lioness must have been absolutely horrified that I, this crazy human comes screaming at her and then fall over her. I mean, that was a touch and go. I mean, when the Bushman showed me the size of those paws, I was like, holy shit. I mean, I was down probably inches from her face, and I didn't even realize it because it was pitch dark. But
and it was only because she was surprised, because it was not behavior
of humans, no,
predator or prey. That
and it was crazy
she didn't know
behavior.
What to do.
So it's a crazy human. Let me just get the hell out of here. And she must have bucketed off as I got up and dusted myself off just in case I kicked her again. Yeah, strange, crazy. Lots of stories like that. Crazier and crazier, really nutso stories. But okay. So
yes. Go ahead.
No, go for it.
There's a common thread in the way that you're delivering all of this, and it sounds very matter of fact, very, this is what I need to do. Is that really how it was, or are you maybe simplifying the emotional aspects of this just because it makes for a shorter story?
Probably. Just, when I start to talk about it, there's so much comes flooding back, and there's so many small things like that. Funnier, some are really strange and funny things that happened, and other things are not so funny. But yeah, a lot of the time, my nature is very matter of fact. I was in charge of a very large contingent of men. I was in charge of 600 horses' welfare. And I had to be very matter of fact about a lot of things. So you talk about African time and African army, and yeah, it really was. So, getting things done my way. I had to work in the first few years with military police because I was laughed off everywhere I tried to teach or do something. In Baja Bugay, the horses are trained in a Zen manner, so we don't put bits in their mouths. So if you look at my Instagram and you look at pictures of anything I'm doing with horses, you'll see there's that one theme, is that there are no steel bits in their mouths. This is a Zen practice. We do not work with ropes, spurs, whips. We do not work with bits in the horse's mouth, which is really weird because most people do. And you talk about war horses, there's going to be bits. But in this particular practice, there aren't. So, as I said before, ninjutsu is very spiritual, and it's about peaceful coexistence whilst being, I think, it's my take on this, being incredibly violent with something else, assassinations and those sort of things that used to be carried out. So when I talk about my military career, I really have lived my ninjutsu and still do live my ninjutsu, which is, that was my job: track, find, eliminate. That's a very much right up there with stuff ninja do. So, and then all the things that happened while I was in the African bush. So that's a unique thing all on its own. So yeah, unique is, I think, the theme here. Everything is unique.
Very much so. Now, on the other side of all of this, we've had guests on the show who have talked about their training, and then whether by intent or by accident, they end up in some profession where they're testing those skills and they're finding the things that work and do not, just as you talked about. And in most cases, they come back out, they remain training, and it has changed the way they train or the way they think about training. How about you? Did
Absolutely.
your time... Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tell me more.
So after a very long service, I think I was there for about 12 years. It was a long time to be in an army. After about 12 years, so these assassination attempts on me got steadily worse. And so I returned home to South Africa. And for quite a while, I just sort of floated around not knowing what to do. My life had been very disciplined and structured. And so I sort of trained problem horses for a living. And that gave me sort of a measure of, but it was like I was a freelance. You got a problem horse, I'll fix your problem horse. And I was often speaking to people and dealing with people who had no idea where I'd come from or what I'd been doing and why I worked with horses with problems with such ease, because it's what I've done my whole life. And so I did that for quite a time. And then I was asked to engage with the police and Metro Police for riot training leading up to the Soccer World Cup in 2010. And I was like, whoa, here we go again. This is cool. And I engaged, and I found that my military training of Baja Bugay and Bujutsu was suddenly, boom, it was there again. And it was, now you're talking armored horse, you're talking riot shield, you're talking riot baton. It's all a sword and a shield to me. So it was like, just, go again. This time the horse, the Baja Bugay was really very prominent in training police for riot work, because your horse needs to control a whole bunch of people. So one well-trained horse and one officer can control 10 or 12 people easily. And if you go back, if you go way back to what shinobi samurai needed to do with their horses. Remember something I haven't mentioned yet, and we'll go there, but shinobi samurai and shinobi no mono are two different things. And shinobi samurai would have been like special ops, and they would have practiced bajubugai, and they would have been the ones who trained shinobi no mono to do jobs. So the common folk would not have had the warrior training, and they would have, been pulled in and taught things. So it would have been samurai who were doing shinobi or ninja ops, who would have worked with horses like in this manner. Well, my particular ancestry. So, so here the riot work, the horses are taught to kind of like take control of the situation, much like you train your riot control dogs. So the horses in bajubugai is needed to be able to push people, move into people. The horse is not naturally aggressive. It's a herbivore. So to teach a horse to behave in that manner takes it's a lengthy process. Horses are clever, humans not so much, and horses learn quite easily. Like well-trained dogs, these warrior horses learn to do all kinds of things that involve not normal horse behavior, if I'm being understood at this point.
Yeah.
So riot work, right up there with things horses can learn to do well.
Mm. Almost everybody listening to this conversation is a martial artist.
Yes.
Maybe a few of them also own or ride horses. It's probably unlikely we have too many, I'm going to guess 0, other than yourself, or people that maybe that listen to this episode when it comes out, that are trained in a martial arts horse discipline, Bujutsu. I'm assuming that there may be others of other names. No?
Not that I've run into.
Okay.
In Japan, our wonderful my counterpart in Japan, he does not live where the horses live, and he needs to take like a 4-hour train ride to go to be where the horses are, and he can only do that on weekend. So I'm extremely blessed that I live with my horses. I own horses. I have a small ranch. I live with my horses. So that's how it is. The Japanese don't have like we have, and in America you have small holdings and plots and small ranches. You call them ranchettes there. I think we call them small holdings, where you can have a small piece of ground and you can keep horses. In Japan, it's not possible. It's not available. It's not the way. So, like I said, my counterpart, and he has not been able to practice. So that he goes to there's 2 or 3 main places where they breed and keep the Japanese Kiso pony, which is a wonderful little animal. And he goes there and he can access the equipment and he can access the archery side. The Yumi bow and the whole Yamusabi thing, that's still very much. When you think about samurai, people think about samurai doing that, right? That's the normal thing. People think about the mounted archery. So mounted archery all over the world has really took off in the last 10 years, and a lot of horse people call what they do horse martial art. And there's a couple of large groups that have organized themselves, but they only do mounted archery. So I've had a lot of martial artists reach out to me on my own, as my own Instagram and Facebook has grown with interest, because I post all the time the stuff that we do and the horse training. That's all I do right now. So I post the stuff and people go, oh my goodness, holy cow, look, geez, how do you get the horse to do that? The horse is just laying down, and now you're shooting, arrows over his back, and now he's moving sideways while you hide behind him and you advance with a bow and arrow. Oh my goodness. And now I'm working spear, and then so people have reached out to me. Martial artists are very, very interested in this. So in America, there's lots of martial artists who also have horses, particularly in Texas, where I would like to go one day. I might still. And Texas is like horses for Africa, to make it a pun. Horses for Africa. Just hundreds and hundreds of horses and martial artists. Those are two things that are in Texas.
Absolutely.
And I'm sure if I dig a little bit, there's lots of other horsemen who are also martial artists, like you're saying. So yes, I have had people reach out to me all over the place, like, how do we start? How do we get going? So this has led to training manuals with Shibata Ryu, Musashi Clan. We have been putting all of the stuff back on paper, and personally, I'm hoping to sort of get a YouTube going to help people get going, because how else are people going to get going? So a lot of the stuff is like secret technique, and we're working with horses in a way that's, you could call it trick work, except that there's no force of ropes, there's no force of bits in the mouth. So that's sort of out the window for a lot of people, saying, oh, well, how is that done? Yeah, it's ninpo. It's the secret ninjutsu stuff. We're really communicating with the horses on another level entirely. So I've known Kiyomi, the current head of the Order of Shinobi Samurai, for about 8 years, and she invited me to join them, and this allowed me to research on a much deeper level over the last 8 years, because I had access to researchers and Me University and all the scrolls and the things that are written down, and it's been wonderful.
Awesome. Well, how about the martial artists who are likely never going to end up on a horse? One of the things that you're talking about is there's a cooperation. There's a mutual effort.
Absolutely.
There, right? The horse. I've spent a little bit of time on horseback, enough to know that building that relationship, building that trust with the horse, which is a two-way street. Horses are brilliant and sensitive animals, and anyone who does not know that likely has just not been around them for long.
Yes.
In the context of other, let's say, more conventional, commonly trained martial arts, we rarely train things where it is, let's say, two against, myself and a partner, in the sense that you and your horse are partners towards whatever end.
Yes.
That can't be easy. Are there lessons perhaps in your training and building those relationships with a horse that we unmounted folk might learn something?
Oh, absolutely. Think about students. I'm trying to get students to understand and perform technique correctly. I'm working with a student who cannot speak my language. I'm working with a student who does not understand my language at all. I have to find another way. Sometimes I'm working with human students, but I'm talking now about the horse students. So we teach the horses what, if you look at it, it would be, horse Aikido, but that's not correct Koryo terms. So we talk about Aikiba, which is the Aikido taught to horses. And if you know a bit about Aikido, then you know that this is, you have an uke and you have the person who's doing the technique. So it becomes that sort of a relationship, and horses just suck it up. They really do. They suck it up. And one thing you cannot be with horses is angry or violent. Now, you say you've ridden, so you know that you can't make I'm going to use my South African kilograms. I don't know what that is, but an average horse of 500 or 600 kilos, that's quite a heavy weight.
1,300 pounds.
Right. Okay. So a 1,300-pound horse cannot be. Well, you can actually. You can put a bit in his mouth, and you can use a whip, and you can force him. You can force him to a point, because at some point his much larger size is going to flatten your ass, and so you should really from the beginning try to find a different way to communicate with him other than, pain in his mouth or a whip or whatever. So when we train them, everything we do and everything we start with is that we prefer to call them Bajo Bugai dragons. So we refer to the horse as a dragon. And if you look at a dragon, there's several things you would not do to a dragon when you were training it. One would be aggressive towards it at any point, because it can fly away, it can be crunch you, smack you with its tail.
It can eat you. Yeah.
It can eat you. It could breathe fire on you. It could smack you with its tail. So you would go about being very, very exceptionally careful how you present it to this dragon to get it to let you ride it and do things with it, because you can't control the dragon with pain and fear. So when you apply that to a horse, you suddenly find he's incredibly cooperative, because you as the human have had to take your ego and shove it right down far away where it never gets seen, in order to make the horse understand, or help the horse understand. We don't make the horse do anything, to help the horse understand what to us is, maneuvers. So being able to stand up on its back legs, being able to strike a target. We teach our horses to strike a target with one leg. We teach them to target, and then we teach them to target a shield. And I mean, I put this on my own Instagram. There's plenty of videos showing me do this sort of thing. We ride them with no bridle on at all. We do things that are considered probably trick work, but it's not trick work, it's martial arts. And then the horse, when I'm on the ground with my sword drawn, the horse is also your problem, big time. He's your problem, because he's like 10 of me on steroids, and he's able to block, push you, thump you, shove you, like a sumo. It's like having a friendly sumo wrestler working with you. So we revert to them as dragons, and everything is about dragons and doing things with dragons, and all the terminology has got to do with that, to remind us constantly to be very humble when dealing with the horse. So yes, for non-riders, even working with the horse on the ground without riding it is a huge experience in this. And we just like to think of it as trying to deal with a student that maybe doesn't speak your language at all. And then everything applies. Everything.
You mentioned your social media a couple of times. Let's make sure we get that in there for people who want to check out what you've got. I've looked at your Instagram account. There's some cool stuff on there.
Yeah, it's not normal horse stuff, that's for sure.
No, it is not.
So I do try and get sort of more into, and I've been told repeatedly by my masters that I need to really, pull my game together and make sure that I'm in more traditional gear. But when you're working with a horse, you say you've ridden them. So when you're working with a horse, the hat is the most important thing here in the African sun. And it's not cowboy stuff at all. It's like, let's not fry our brain stuff.
Right.
And yeah, so yeah, real life equestrian martial arts. So I'm hoping that a lot of the definitely Americans, and there's a lot of Europeans that are totally into, like, how do we get going with this? How do we start this? Because it is something that if you don't bring it back to people, it'll just get archived and become dusty scroll somewhere, and that would be really sad, I think.
Are you available to teach? I would imagine.
I teach I have a few students, but they're horsemen. They're horse people,
sure.
And they enjoy the connection. That's the word I'm looking for. They enjoy the connection. It gives them a much closer connection, even if they don't do the whole martial art, the whole 9 yards. The whole 9 yards, of course, is We start the horse off with the horse aikido or aikiba, and then we teach the horse all about taking weapons. And then from there, we work through the weapons. So spear, then yari, spear. And then we do a lot of sword work. And then from the sword drawing and everything, we work with the longer sword. So katana, then nagamaki, and then which is a very long handle. It's like a katana with a very long handle. And then from there, we will work with the bow because we start with weapons on and around the horse. And then the last one we do is the weapons that you throw away. So the bow and arrow, the bow gets, you want the horse to understand the weapons. We do the throw the weapons away last. So we throw blades, we do all of them. But you have to be able to do all of that on the ground first. You need to be able to work with a sword. So basic kenjutsu is quite necessary. Basic everything is very necessary. So any martial artist.
Yeah. What's next?
What's next?
There's a lot, and we certainly talked about how we didn't talk about everything. So there's a lot of substance there. I don't get the sense that you are seeking a quiet, hidden life. If you were, you probably wouldn't come on the show, right?
Well, it's been a quiet, hidden life for a very, very long time. And Japan needs us, and Japan needs things like this to be out there, alive, awake. Ninjas are real. Ninjas are real. Horse martial arts is not just mounted archery. It's real. It's bigger than that. And if you don't tell people about a story, then they don't know. So I have undertaken that I will do that now. I will make it known. So I've got to talk about it. There's going to be a big move to get all my stuff onto a YouTube, because people keep asking me, how do we do this and how do we start that? And I'm like, hey, you know what? I need to do a YouTube channel. So that's in the pipeline. Because there's nothing like seeing something in order to be able to practice it. And so I can be here in South Africa and I can put it on YouTube, and people can get the start that they're looking for. So have horse will martial art. Have horse will martial arts. Maybe COVID eventually just goes the hell away, and Japan can open up and everything can open up. And we've got a couple of things planned, and there are a lot of people in Europe, Germany side are really very interested in having me there. And definitely the States, so I'm definitely going to come and visit. So I probably Texas, because I think you've got as many martial arts dojos in Texas, from what I've been speaking to, as you do horses.
There are quite a few in Texas.
Wow.
Yeah, the Texas found martial arts found an early home in Texas.
Yeah, I can believe it.
For sure.
So the gun culture there, the martial arts culture there, the horse culture there, I definitely got to go and take a peek. And there's a whole bunch of good people there that have said, if you want to come this way, just say. If you want to come this way, we're gonna host you for a bit. And I'm like, hey, I'm game. If someone's got a horse, and the wonderful thing about horse martial arts is it's a big sky dojo. Don't need a indoors wonderful, but I need an open space to start. And I think so. I definitely will come and visit the US. I definitely will visit Europe. There's just too many people asking me to migrate in that direction, and you can only get so much out of YouTube and Instagram videos and Facebook videos. So yeah, it's
for sure.
It's a wonderful thing, and it shouldn't be lost.
I agree. I applaud what you're doing. Please continue. When that YouTube channel is live, make sure you let us know. We'll put out a post and we'll update the show notes, because it sounds like this show will come out before that is ready to go. Anytime anyone is chronicling something that is at threat of being lost, I want to make sure we do what we can.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And I think the Musashi clan also appreciate that, because again, them, wonderful, wonderful group of real, real people, real ninja, and shinobi samurai that are still around today, and they can trace their history way back. It's just insane. I think that I will also send you the link if people who are listening want to know more about that. They've got a Wikipedia link has been established properly now, so I'll send you that and my Instagram links.
Yeah, anything that you want in the show notes, send it over. We'll make sure it gets published.
So okay. So their website is www.masashi.ninja, and so they've had to really and the information for their Wikipedia is under Order of Masashi Shinobi Samurai. And they've had to really get onto the internet. The COVID has done this to them. They've had to come out of their shell and get onto the internet because just nobody knows enough about them. You want to go and tour and do a ninja tour, samurai tour in Japan. Yeah, you can go do that. You'll find that if you're looking for it. But the bigger part of who they are is just incredible. And if they didn't do this, then nobody would know. It's just really sad. Nobody would know.
It is. Well, this has been quite the ride, and I appreciate your time and these wonderful stories that you've told. So now it's time to start to wind down. And really the last part that I ask of you, what do you want to say? What final words for the audience today?
Well, I do have a message for the martial artists in general out there. I live in South Africa. It's a very, very violent country. In fact, I think we made rape capital of the world 2 years in a row. So for female self-defense, it's based on very practical aspects. I've had very real attempts on my life, and I've also learned what works and what works. Otherwise, I wouldn't be talking to you. Get armed and get trained. Self-defense should not stop in the dojo. Self-defense is a much bigger thing. It's a defense of the self. So I do a lot of self-defense training of women in my country. I think South Africa has, of its 5 cities in the top 20, has 5 cities in the top 20 most dangerous cities in the world. And we have a murder rate of 64 a day. So when I speak about self-defense, it's very real, very realistic. Your life is gone in an instant. And it's very real. And it always bothers me just a little when martial artists teach self-defense and they teach techniques which really should be looked at hard and strong, whether they actually stand up to a real attack. And that's sort of a thing of mine. That is as a woman living in this kind of country, that's a big thing for me, is that this word self-defense or defense of the self should be for women. There's a lot of men teaching women self-defense, and there's women teaching women self-defense. And if you look at it, you've got to ask yourself, does that stand up to a real attack? Because someone with a machete is never by himself. There's always more. And all those fancy techniques about I'll duck this way and I'll block like that, and then I'll grab the machete. Someone's hit you about 5 times at that point. Someone stabbed you about 16 times at that point. And all these knife disarms do not work. And yeah, people, please go and relook at things that you think work. That's a big message. Women out there who are vulnerable, women who are taking self-defense classes or doing some kind of martial arts, they need to be trained properly. So if you're an excellent karate teacher, teach good karate. Don't delve into, teaching about gun disarms when you have no business teaching about gun disarms. Let the gun guys do that. Tell the woman, go to a range, go find somebody to teach you proper range work. That's the thing. Make sure that martial arts is where martial arts should be, and weapons are where weapons should be. Because, for instance, there's, like I said before already, there's a lot of that where you look at the martial arts and you go, wow, that's not very applicable. No one telegraphs a knife attack. It comes fast, hard, and horrible, like somebody on crack. That's all I'm going to say about that.
I told you in the intro that this was a unique and an exciting episode, and, well, I think we delivered. I had a great time. There were points during this conversation where I kind of had to wake back up because I was so immersed in listening that I forgot that I had to host the show. So, Sensei, thanks for coming on. I do appreciate your time. I appreciate the amazing stories you told. And I think we're going to have you back to go a little deeper on some of these things because, man, you want the links that we talked about. You want to see some photos. You want to go deeper, check out other stuff, sign up for the newsletter. Well, go to whistlekickmartialartsradio.com. That's where you're going to get all that stuff. And if you're down to support us and all of our work, remember, you got quite a few choices. You could buy one of our Amazon books, tell people about the show, maybe this episode in particular, or consider supporting our Patreon, patreon.com/whistlekick. And if you're looking for an amazing martial artist designed, research-backed flexibility program, well, guess what? I wrote one. I had some help. It's awesome. You can find it at whistlekick.com or whistlekickprograms.com. And it's free. Yep, completely free. So check that out. If you want to buy something else at whistlekick.com, don't forget the code podcast15. If you've got topic suggestions, guest suggestions, or feedback, I want to hear it. Jeremy at whistlekick.com. Our social media is at whistlekick, as you might expect. Until next time, train hard, smile, and have a great day.